When we were at the mill, this was the piece of cherry. It's like orchard cherry. This was the pith right here. We were gonna scrap it because, well, this is what happens to the pith, is it just splits. There's splits all over the place and checking, and it's usually just garbage. I think I'm gonna try and take a couple of cuts on the bandsaw here. It's pretty sketchy, it's warped and twisted. You know, I might only end up with 3/4 inch boards out of this. I believe this is like 1.5 inches, but I think there's some wood here we can salvage. Yeah, the first thing I'm gonna do is probably cut it right here. Well, there's what I got out of it. Not a whole lot, but pretty nice pieces though, and it's going to be just enough for me to use on this on these feet. So these two pieces are going to be my feet. So going to be these guys here. So to get the height I need, I'm going to glue on these pieces. I'll rip them down so they fit. Yeah, I'm going to get these glued up and let them sit for at least 12 hours. With a combined clamping force of about 25,800 pounds, this will prove that there's no such thing as too much clamping force. Glue up is done. So I'm going to take these, rejoint them, plane them, dimension them to their final dimension, and then I'll sketch out the foot design and take it to the bandsaw. Everything here so far, we've got the 4 posts are dimensioned square perfectly to 3 3/4. These are 4 inches wide. I've got this roughed out, just need some final sanding on it. But what I want to do right now is get these mortise and tenon into here. So I'll probably cut these on the table saw. I've got a brand new Forest finger tooth blade. It makes a super clean flat cut. So I'm going to give that a test run on these guys. So the day you decide you're going to make some zero clearance inserts, make extra. Because on days like today, when you got a new blade, you just plop her in there and away you go. I'll just quickly show you my setup here. Aside from building a sled, this is the best thing I got. So I've used a marking gauge here and I've scribed my line in. Using the Osborne, I can set a stop back there, a flip down stop, so they all sort of relatively stay the same. So I'm going to take 3/4 of an inch because that's what my shoulder plane is. It's 3/4. Actually going to take just maybe a 32nd less than 3/4, and then clean it up and then transfer that onto the legs. Alright, the tenons are all cut. A little bit of work to do on the cheeks there to clean it up for a nice tight fit on the feet. The other bit of planning I want to do right now before I get too carried away is I want to have these in here, but I didn't want them sticking up past the bottom of the foot. So I'm going to drill them in so they're just sticking out just a hair. Then I'm going to drill through the center of this, try and countersink a bolt in there, and have this so I can twist them in and out, level the bench off. That way they might only be sticking out, you know, depending on how unlevel my floor is. So when this is on the ground, it will still look like the feet are actually touching. So then I figure if it, you know, if that plan doesn't work out, it's on the bottom of the foot anyways. So yeah, these are the Milwaukee Big Hogs. They've got the carbide teeth in them. And I figured, you know, they'll probably do a really nice job. And the kit was on sale, so I bought it. Alright, so here's hole number 1. You know, this is the bottom of the foot, so it doesn't really matter, but hole number 2, not much better. Hole number 3, probably the worst. And then the last one, beauty. And all I did was just go super slow, and it made a beautiful cut. You know, there's something to be said about a chisel and a hammer. And I'm not by any means a pro. But I got these are sharpened like deadly, deadly sharp. But there's also something to be said about a router and a good jig. Okay, so those are seated in there. They're nice and tight, but not too tight. There's lots of room for glue. There'll be enough friction in there they'll hold in there really well. All right, we're about 15th of January. I had to take a few days off. Spent the past hour or so fitting these legs into their feet here. So I'm going to start mapping out my mortise and tenons for the side, the through pieces here. And sticking with the same concept, same sort of design with the cherry in the middle, and then I just glued on a couple of pieces of super white maple. And I think this end grain, you know, once you get some oil on it, it's going to look really nice poking out through the sides here of the legs. Now that I've got the tenons all cut, I made myself a little jig. This just rides on the posts. I'll be able to start routing it out. Basically, just so I can line it up, I made it so these fit real snug in there. So working away here on the mortises, just wanted to show this I did with the router. This is like my reference. This is straight up and down 90 degrees. Then I've taken this over to the drill press. I hogged these out right through to the other side, and I was very careful to stay well away, like in some cases a 1/4 inch away from this edge when drilling, because I am going to use the router combination of a couple of bits to get this right, and then use the mortise chisel to square off all the edges. So I need this reference surface here to be smooth and consistent the whole way down. So I'm going to use a flush trim bit and slowly work my way down until I get about, you know, 1.5 inches down here. Then I'll flip it over. You can see my line here. I've stayed well away from it in a lot of areas, and then I can reach in with I have a 2-inch flush trim bit, and I can essentially copy that side, that side on the bottom. So this is the sketchy side to do. So this is my inside, where I'll put the cheek of the tenon. Will go here. So if I screw up anywhere, I've got a little bit of breathing room there. Alright, I got Big Bertha in here. We'll see this is going to do it. Okay, so got the back side, or the inside square. Now this is the face I referenced to do the rest of it. So, but this is also the side that you'll see the tenon coming through. So I want to make sure that these lines are perfect, or as perfect as my ability will allow. I've got a 2-inch and I've got an 1.5 inch. And what I do is assuming that this is flat, which, you know, it's not bad, it could go quite a bit more, but I push it on the side here, and then I roll it up, and it starts a little tiny cut right here. I don't know if you can see that. I got that flat on there, and then I'll roll it in there, and it starts to a little cut there. Do the same on this side. Same here. All right, let's see how this all joins up here. This goes this way. Oops. Aha! I would say that is in there. An acceptable fit by hand. I'm happy with that.